Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Cliff, and I'm being taped by an incompetent boob. We'll leave Elsa's story out now. My story is really a family story. Not family rated story. It's not R rated. Yes, it's R rated, at least. But so much of my story is connected with the idea that I had been married for 20 years when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. We had had 5 children, very close together. We had a kid every 9 months and 20 minutes, it seemed like to me. My wife and I suffered from a dual disease. It was alcoholism and Catholicism. And it seemed like every time I came out of a blackout, what the hell is that? You know? And they're all right when they're little, like kittens, you know, but they grow. And of course, I'm an insane, crazy, wild, nutty, violent alcoholic. I'm not one of these guys that sits in the corner and lets his liver grow. You know what I mean? I'm full of activity when I drink. I'm Mr. Action. And so these kids were raised in a zoo. And they joined right in. And by the time we got to Alcoholics Anonymous, there were 7 of us, and you know the experts. I love the experts. They all live in Fresno. Did you know that? The experts say that for every one person's alcoholism, it destroys 7 lives. And we got here, there were 7 of us, and we were all fruitcakes. It was just a zoo. It was a nut house. Jack Parr said one time, it's like you tipped the world and everything loose rolled in Southern California. You know? You tipped Southern California, everything loose rolled to my house. It was my mother-in-law lived with us. She was an alcoholic. I invited her. She was about 4'10" and was on a walker. She had broken her hip. She didn't know how. She thought it was funny, it didn't hurt. And then I got these children. It's the late 60s now, okay? You got to be with me in the late 60s. My oldest son, 3 of my older kids are in high school in the late 60s in this house. And my oldest son is working his way through high school as a hashish salesman. Oh, he was a pimp. You never had to give him any money. I used to hit him up for a 5th about once a week, you know. He had a wad like this. Here, what do you need, Dad? And he had hair down to his butt. You know, his head went like this all the time. He looked like one of those little dolls in the back of a car, you know. Called his mother, man. Hey, man, what's for dinner? Oh, he was a beauty, I'll tell you for sure. And he loved LSD. He took LSD, boy, like it was popcorn, and they see a lot of lights. Out of the corner of their eye, they see a lot of things. Probably some of you are familiar with that. I'm a little old for that. But he used to scare the hell out of me. You know, I'd be right in the middle of a sentence. He'd say, what was that? You know, I wasn't that good a shape myself. I'd say, what? What was it? Where? What? You know. And then my mother-in-law lean on her walker and say, I'll explain it. And we would listen to the explanation. And my wife was in the throes of pre-Al-Anonism at the time. She'd had her sense of humor surgically removed many years before. And she always went around with that expression. I saw one of them here. don't know if any of you remember. Don't you think you had a few too many? Yeah, you had a few too few. That's your goddamn problem. And she had one of those pre-Al-Anon ticks in her eye. Went like this. We lived in that marine town down there in Oceanside. You couldn't let her go downtown like that. You get in a lot of trouble. And the girls, my girls in high school, they had boyfriends. Looked exactly like my son. The three of them used to get on the couch together. You should have watched that. And every dope fiend kid that ran away came to my house. They all looked alike to me. I just whacked anybody came near me, you know. And I had some pretty strange friends of my own. And then Grandma'd go around the block, bring these old guys home. It was a zoo. It was a zoo. I always thought, if I could unload this bunch, you know, I could drink like a gentleman again, you know. And I was to get my chance to do that. But I've always been I'm with Elsa. Booze never stopped working for me, ever. The last day I drank alcohol, it did just what it did for me the first day I drank alcohol. And I'm very grateful for that. I hear lots of you come to these podiums and say that alcohol stopped working for you. And I believe you. I have no reason not to believe you. You people have never lied to me, ever. No, hell no you haven't. I'm not joking there a bit. AA has never let me down. And as far as I know, I have never let AA down. And nobody in AA or Al-Anon has ever lied to me. And you say it quit working for you, I believe you. But I want to tell you, it never stopped working for me and Elsa. See, when I was 16 years old, I found this great secret that I looked for. Because I was crazy when I was 4 years old. That's as far back as I can remember. And as far as I know, before that, I was crazy. I have always been crazy. I have always lived on the edge of psychosis. One step either way, there he goes, take him away. You know what I mean? I mean, I was always filled with anger, filled with hatred, filled with vendetta, filled with fear. I can remember the thing I remember is down in Venice, on the Speedway in Venice where we lived. That'd make anybody an alcoholic, wouldn't it? And you had those days there weren't that many cars, and I'd have to wait for a car when I was 4 years old. And I'd just stand there by the side of the road waiting for a car. When a car would come, I'd go. And like a little soldier, I'd wait for the next one. Didn't know how to do this yet, you know. You know, people come driving along and say, look at the little bit, what the hell was that all about? And that's how I felt. I hadn't had a drink yet. And that's how I felt my whole life. Filled with this black ball in the middle of my belly. On a good day, it was about the size of a softball. On a bad day, it was about the size of a basketball. But I don't give a damn what the size was. I don't know about you, but that black ball ruled my life. I never had a thought. I never took an action. I never had a reaction. I never had an emotion in my life. Wasn't generated and controlled by that black ball in the middle of my belly. And if you don't know, and I think a lot of you do, that's a painful way to live. That living sucks. But it's all I'd ever known. That's all I thought I could ever have. And when I was 16, I found a great secret. I found that after I drank about 40 minutes, something would happen to me. I would like disengage whatever lobe of the brain was connected to the black ball. And then like for about 8 minutes, everything in my life was all right. There wasn't anything wrong with me for about 8 minutes. I was enough for 8 minutes. And a lot of times right after that, I got in a lot of trouble. Because I was sober maybe 3 years when I figured out that when the 8 minutes hit me, I had already had 5 drinks past that. I was 3 years sober before I figured that out. That's how brilliant this guy you got here talking tonight. I was already 5 drinks past, and then I would hurry up and drink so I wouldn't lose the 8 minutes. I had already passed it. You know, and then so I got in a lot of trouble. I'm a fighting drunk. I love to fight when I'm drunk. I'm macho. Just rather fight than anything. which is too bad because I'm no good at it. In my case, the moment I become brave enough to fight, I lose my muscle coordination. You can get seriously damaged doing that. And all my life I was violent, in all kinds of trouble, went to jail a lot, wrecked cars, that sort of thing. In my wild and misspent youth, after I got married, a lot of that went away. Became a school teacher, can you imagine? A functioning alcoholic, a working fool. You know, a fool anyway. But I loved teaching, and I was really good at it. Didn't have to be one of the best teachers. I had to be the best teacher. I have to do 10 times more than you to prove I'm half as good. Does anybody identify with that? That's the kind of alcoholic, a functioning alcoholic, the kind that die. Well, the experts in Fresno, they say that 95 to 97% of us that die of alcoholism, 95 to 97% are functioning alcoholics. People who drink every night, get up and go to work the next day, prove their mettle, go home and get drunk again and get it up and do it over until you get killed in a car wreck, or cirrhosis of the liver, or esophagus ruptures, or you get beaten to death. I tried that on the installment plan. Takes a long time that way, you know. And being stabbed by dull scissors. I remember that one time because my wife was standing with the scissors saying, "You've got to go to sleep sometime." I said, "You want to bet?" And so, I was one of those. One guy said a functioning alcoholic is one whose wife works. You don't want to tell that in an Al-Anon meeting either. They don't think that's funny. You want to hear an Al-Anon joke, ones that Al-Anons tell? The difference between a dog and an alcoholic: when you let a dog back in the house, it quits whining. That didn't go over very well, did it? But and so all my life I drank. I had a lot of good times drinking. Oh, Lord, I love the taste of booze, don't you? You hear these weenies get up and say, "I never cared for the taste of alcohol." Would you care for the taste of these? I love rum. Rum's good. Scotch, I like Scotch a lot. Really good. Sour mash bourbon whiskey is my favorite. Vanilla extract I'm not real crazy about. But if that's what you're drinking, okay, let's go. It does have bouquet, you have to admit that. So, I had brutalized that family. We were in a mess. But, I was such a functioning alcoholic, I couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. You know what I mean? Look at what I'm accomplishing. Hell, I was teaching speech there at Oceanside High 5 or 6 years before I got to AA this time. I've been in and out. First time I went to AA was in 1965. And they were just those little meetings, with 6 people around a table with a bare light bulb and fly specks on the light bulb. And when I went in one of those meetings, I thought, boy, have you made a mistake. Because I've been educated way beyond my intelligence, and I have degrees, And these people seem to have the collective IQ of an orange. I remember the third night this guy said, "Well, we keep it simple here." I said, "No! You got to be kidding, Leroy. You could have fooled me." Then a sign on the wall said, "First things first." That's good. Well, I always do third things first. What the hell does that mean? Best thing though, they had a sign right next to that. My favorite one was, "Think." Oh yeah, I'll get right on that. That's my problem, you meatheads. And so I went to AA, and it didn't work for me at all. I used to go to a little speaker meeting there in Oceanside, about this size. And I used to sit in the last chair, right by the door, the loser chair. And if somebody else had it, I'd snatch it away. That's my chair. I'm the loser here. And, I'd sit in the back there in all my glory and all my intelligence and all. And every speaker sounded like his name was Clem. And he'd been out of bib overalls about an hour and a half, and his wife's name was Martha. And I always heard Clem say that his problem was drinking. that he'd been a good, decent, happy, sincere, worthwhile folk his whole life. But he drank too much. And after he drank too much for a while, it really started interfering with his life. And so he and Martha'd come to the A&A and put the plug in the jug. And then they had returned. They had gone back to being good, decent, happy, sincere, worthwhile folk again. They had been rehabilitated, I heard them say. You know the word rehabilitated? In 65, my hero was a guy named Eldridge Cleaver. He was a black militant terrorist. Well, that was my politics in 65. Blow it up or burn it down. I didn't really give a shit which, you know. And Eldridge had given this great speech a few months earlier. He was talking about the prison system that night when he gave that talk. He was talking about how they were always trying to rehabilitate him. He says, you know what they'd never known? He had never been rehabilitated. And you can't rehabilitate somebody who has never been rehabilitated. See, and that's how I felt in AA. Evidently, you goose at some point in your life had been okay. I told you when I was 4 years old, I wasn't okay. I've never been okay. You know, when I was sitting in the back of that room one night in 1965, the show in 65, Laugh-In, that was the big show. I used to want to leap up in the meeting and say, boring. You know, oh God, I wanted to do that. Boring. If I could have had a drink, I would have done it. But I was sitting in the back there one night, and all of a sudden it came to me that they wanted me to give up my 8 minutes to hang around with Clem and Martha. Oh, no. So I resigned from AA. And the next 5 years, I'm slipping in and out and in and out and in. Well, I would slip on the program. I would come into AA for like 30 days. Then I would be drunk for 2 years. Now, that's a slip. You got to admit that. And then I'd come in for 40 days and be drunk for a year and a half, that kind of thing, okay? But I never quit functioning, and that's why I almost died. Principal called me in one time. He did a lot of that, and I was teaching a speech class among other classes, and he'd gotten a flyer in the mail. There was a debate and a speech tournament which was being held 30 miles down the road at San Diego State College, and he said, that would be good for your students. Why don't you go down? I didn't know a damn thing about it. All my background had been in the theater. I didn't think about debate and forensic speech. But I was kind of in trouble, so I said, sure, sounds like a good idea. And I found 5 or 6 dummies and wanted to give it a try. Took about half an hour, taught them what I knew. And we went down 30 miles down the road to San Diego State College, where they were having this big speech tournament. We were amazed when we got there. There were like 50 schools competing in this thing, maybe 500 contestants. All the boys were in 3-piece suits with vests and ties. The girls were in these lovely dresses. We're in Levi's. What the hell do we know? And they butchered us. They slaughtered us. We didn't win a round. I mean, they ground us into the dirt's what they did. I don't know what kind of drunk you are, but I don't care for losing. I get ticked when I lose, and I went in the coach's room about half the size. There were about 20, 25 coaches in there. They've been doing this for years. They're pals, they're buddies, they're compadres, and they snubbed me, it seemed to me. So I hung around all day so they could snub me longer. You know how we are. And one guy that really ticked me off, he had a lot of hair. That pissed me off right away. Oh, he was one of those beautiful gray hair, not a hair out of place. Took 9 barbers to get it right. Had about $1,000 suit on. The other coaches did this when they went in front of him. And about 2 in the afternoon, this guy turns to me and he says, "Where are you from?" God, I was grateful to be spoken to. I said, "Oceanside." He said, "Oh, where's that?" 30 miles up the gut. He gave me a resentment. And I went back to that high school, and he didn't leave my mind for the next 4 or 5 years. And I built a speech team at Oceanside High, and I never let him out of my mind one day. I get up in the morning. Here's the kind of alcoholic I am. I get up in the morning. I don't drink all day. I do not touch a drink throughout. Only alcoholics do that. Of course, I don't eat all day either. Better that way. And drink maybe 400 cups of coffee. And and stay pissed off. I mean, I'm in their faces all day screaming and yelling, coaching, yelling, hollering, coaching! Guy next door used to say, I love to watch them leaving your room wiping the spit off their glasses. Then the reporter one time asked one of my students, what's the secret of your coach's success? The kid said, terror. And he wasn't lying. Boy, do you know how hard that is? To make 150 people do what they don't want to do? I mean, that'll wind you up. The nerves hang out there to your fingers that far. Your brain gets too big for your head. Every muscle in my body's wound up. That last kid leaving in the evening, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Good night, Mr. Roche. Out to the car. We're all day, half a pint of vodka, seal unbroken, waiting for me all day, calling to me all day. Go get him, Cliff, baby, I'm waiting, darling. Getting hot vodka. Love to talk about that in Al-Anon meetings. Get up there and open up that hot vodka, light those cheap cigars I smoked in those days, huh? I always took half the half pint.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
God, is there anything in the world like hot vodka? Just in the bloodstream. The nerves go back in the fingers. The brain subsides, huh? Every muscle in my body relaxes. I'd exhale, take another puff of that cigar. Damn, you're a good coach. Finish off the half pint, go home and destroy my family. And the last 4 or 5 years, I drank every night at home. Foul-mouthed, mean, sarcastic, cruel, violent, drunk, and I drank every night at home, and that's what happened to that wife and kids. And we were all crazy. But I built a speech team. That weird. We're dying of an incurable disease, and we're doing stuff, you know. And then after a year or so, we won one of those speech tournaments. But I didn't say anything to the gray-haired guy. It wasn't time yet. I know when it's time, don't you? The next year, there were like, 12, 14 tournaments. We took first place in every single tournament. But I can wait. The next year, there was a tournament. There were 25 schools competing. And my team scored more sweepstakes points than the other 24 schools combined. Then I went up to the gray-haired guy, and I put my nose right against his, and I said, do you know where Oceanside is now? And he just looked blank. He said, what are you talking about? I said, don't you remember about 4 or 5 years ago, you said to me, Oceanside, where's that? And he said, we just moved here from Nebraska. I didn't know where it was. And that's the story of my life right there. And right after that, my wife and I had one of our main events, which the neighbors have come to miss so much. And our neighbors didn't even get a television set till after I got sober. They didn't need it, you know. They all had Venetian blind marks on their forehead, you know, from watching out the window. Oh, there he got, you know. We were an entertainment industry all by ourselves. But I was bad enough, but the kids helped right too. And I moved out, and I was living down at the beach with my surfboard where I wanted to live anyway. And I went by the house one afternoon. I hadn't had a drink yet, and I was haranguing my wife about money. And the hashy salesman was kind of bobbing there in the background, humming a tune from the planet Pluto. And I turned to him, and as I look back on it, it's one of the dumbest things I ever did in my life. I turned to him and said, Dave, what's it like not to have your old man around the house? And he looked me right in the eye, and he said, it's beautiful. And I didn't know it maybe for an hour or 2 hours, but that was my bottom. That's as far as I'm going. I had lost the respect of a 16-year-old kid. And I went back to that dump on the beach and ranted and waved for a while and sniveled and whined for a while. And I went out and sat on the screen porch overlooking the ocean, and I watched the most beautiful sunset that I've ever seen. And about the time that the sun was going down into the water, our book calls it the moment of clarity. Polly P calls it the moment of grace. I like that, the moment of grace. The only time in my life where I had a chance. The only difference between you and I sitting in this meeting, talking in this meeting tonight, living happy, joyous, and free, and the people maybe a mile from here that are dying of alcohol, the only difference between us and them is we surrendered. We gave it up. I didn't have any more plans of my own. I was out of plans. I was out of answers. All my education, all my everything, all my will was of no value anymore. And as that sun went down into the water, I just gave it up. And I went in the bedroom and dug out the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I read it for 3 days and 3 nights. I called in sick. I didn't go to work. I slept a little bit, and I ate even less. And I read the book. We don't have any newcomers tonight, and that's really, you feel like you're talking with handcuffs on when there's not a newcomer in the room. Because my sponsor always told me, you go tell them your story and talk to the newcomers. So I'll just pretend like there's a newcomer in the room tonight. I read the book cover to cover. You know, for new people, a lot of times they hear about the first 164 pages, they think that's it. What saved my life was a story in the second edition called The Professor and the Paradox. His story's not in the book. As a matter of fact, he died drunk. But that doesn't make any difference. When I see him on the other side, I'm going to hug him and I'm going to tell him that he saved my life. He was another egotistical school teacher. And so he rang my chimes. He made it possible for me to surrender. And on the third time through the book, on the 13th of January, 1970, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was on page 63 again. And on page 63, for anybody that's new, there's a little prayer, which is step 3. And in my confused condition, it seemed like it would be a good idea if I would kneel down and read that prayer out loud to myself. I read, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. I suffer from a terminal case of self-obsession. I've heard, I don't know, maybe 212 steps, 5th steps in my life. And every single one of those men, primary defective character was self-obsession. It is the root cause of all alcoholism as far as I'm concerned. There's only 2 kinds of newcomers. There's ones who've surrendered and ones who haven't. And the ones that have surrendered are a lot of fun, and the other guys are a pain in the butt. But what are you going to do? You know, I talk to those guys too because it keeps me sober. But self-obsession. And AA has been the solution for me out of self. AA demands that I do not think of self. AA demands that I think of Lloyd a few minutes a day. You know? Uncomfortable it is for me to think of Lloyd. It's and my friend down there, and all the guys I sponsor, and all the people that I know. That night I was over at a guy named Bill Blake's house. He's dead now, 7 years. He was my sponsor for 20 years. And I miss him every day. There's not a day goes by in my life I don't miss my sponsor. And Elsa was talking about that loss of her. You know, I've lost all my family. The hardest death I ever faced in my life was the death of my sponsor. Passed my mother and father and siblings. He was life to me. He was a little electrician, educated only to the 7th grade. And he was a Skid Row alcoholic, under the bridge alcoholic, who believed in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, who believed in the steps, who believed in this way of life. The nice, simple program. It doesn't matter what you know, it's what you do. And I knocked on their door the first night. I'd been a 5-year loser in and out, a sarcastic, overeducated, pompous-ass loser. For 5 years, Margie opened the door, here I am on the porch. PL on the forehead, loser, you know. I've often thought, what would I have said to me? Oh, I would have said, oh, are we back again? No, I would have ripped me to shreds. Margie saw me. I've never seen anybody so glad to see me in my life. Imagine. I mean, she just went, Cliff, in the house I go. First of 8 trillion of these, She fusses around me at the table. She said, this is great. She said, oh, this is wonderful. She said, Bill's been crazy lately. He's had nobody to work with. Oh, this is so nice. And then Bill comes home about 10 minutes later and says, Cliff, oh, hot dark. In about 10 minutes, I'm saying, anything else I can do to help you folks out? I'll be glad to help any way I can. Cliff's here. We can start AA now. But about 3 weeks later, I was in a meeting for newcomers. And one of the other newcomers said, what do you mean this is a selfish program? And I went, I know. I knew the first night I got here. I knew they were glad for me. I knew that they'd been praying for me for 5 years. But I couldn't help but know that they were glad for Bill and Margie. See, they knew the great secret of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. You can't keep it unless you give it away. There's no way you can keep this thing unless you're willing to give it away. And of course, those two gave it away better than anybody I've ever known. So it's always been pretty easy for me, since I learned the first night I was here, to do whatever I'm supposed to do here. I don't have to do it cheerfully. If there's anybody new here, there's only one place in the whole book says you have to do anything cheerfully. I'll let you find that. When the phone rings at 1 in the morning, I don't know what the other old timers are like. I don't ever leap out of bed and say, a 12-step call. Oh, God, that's wonderful. I don't do it. I go, is that nobody lets in Oceanside but me? God, bring it. Hello? Sure. What's the address, you dirty son? I don't do it cheerfully. As long as I do it, that's all that matters. Because, that was the last nice thing my sponsor ever said to me, was that night. Till the day he died, he never said a kind word to me. He was so cruel to me because I needed that. If you're anything like me, and I hope you're not, you need a sponsor like I had. I think the nicest thing he said the first 5 years was, shut up. The third day, I was twitching. I never shook, but I would flip things. Nobody would sit next to me in the meeting, You'd have your coffee and go, and he gets me in the car. He's driving me to L.A. to his sponsors, Clancy, see? So he's driving me to L.A. on the freeway. He has a big Lincoln Continental. I like that, And I'm just starting to settle down in the seat. I'm in the front seat with him, and he has electric windows. He drives right next to a huge semi, the engine of it, and he opens my window. Oh, God. And he says, I love to watch those newcomers jump. Cruel, man. He was screaming at me one night, and the only thing I could think to say was, well, I have degrees, He said, so does a thermometer. Where they stick out sometimes, don't they? But whatever it was, it worked. And all my life, I knew what was the matter with me. I've always known. I knew when I was drinking and after I quit drinking. My problem has always been I was not loved enough. I was raised in an alcoholic home, both parents alcoholic. And all my life, I just looked for somebody to love me enough. And now looking back at it, a lot of people tried. My wife tried, my children tried, my students tried. Lots of people tried. But there was something I didn't know about me that my sponsor didn't know. There isn't enough. For a person like me, there isn't enough love. You haven't got enough. You got everybody in the world, everybody in China, everywhere said, let's love Cliff. I would say, is that it? Is that all? The black hole of love that goes in there and you never see it again. But what the sponsor knew that I didn't know, and he never told me because he knew I was too stupid to understand. He knew that my problem had never been that I wasn't loved enough. He knew that my problem had always been I never loved enough. I never loved at all. I built a prison before I was 4 years old in there. I thought it was a wall to keep you out and it was a prison to keep me in. Completely self-obsessed, completely dedicated to me, mine, His Majesty the baby. And he knew that my problem was I never loved at all, and I didn't know how to start to learn how to love. He knew that. So he did what every intelligent sponsor I've ever known did. He made me take loving actions against my better judgment. He made me stand at the door and greet people. I hated that because I'm a snob, Hi there, what's your name? Like I really give a You know, he took me with him on all his 12-step calls. He made me talk to the wall talkers. Those guys used to sit in the back of the. I had to go up after the meeting and say, "Hi, how are you?" Good, you know. And he made me take care of this guy Al, who I loathed. I had to take Al on because he didn't have a driver's license. He was a blowhard. I used to have to haul him everywhere. You know, I used to let Al off at night, and I would be so relieved to get rid of that blowhard. I would have this glorious feeling, better than that 8 minutes. It would only last maybe a minute, but scare the hell out of me. It felt so good. And after about 1.5 years on a second inventory, I figured out what that feeling is. It's the feeling of being enough. All those actions I was taking, including taking care of Al, was making it possible for me to feel like I was enough. And Al got drunk once more, and I went to get him. I had 1.5 years. He had had almost a year, and he was completely destroyed. And I was talking to him all morning. Al, God, we'll just start over, buddy. It's one day at a time, you know. And all of a sudden, out of my mouth, I said, "I love you, Al." And see, I knew that it was true. I don't know if Al knew that it was true, but I knew that it was true. I knew I wanted Al to be sober as much as I wanted to be sober myself. And to me, in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what love is. I want you to be sober if you want to, as badly as I want to be sober myself. And Al got sober. He's still sober today. He's the guru of Santa Maria. Still a blowhard, too, I'll tell you. But he and I became the primo 12-step team of all time. We called in every drunk in the Oceanside, Carlsbad area for about 2 years. We 12-stepped hundreds of men. We used to do the good guy, bad guy. Did you ever do that? You know, one guy says, "You gotta shut your mouth, quit your whining, get your ass to the meeting." The other guy says, "Never mind him. Come here, I'll talk to you." And I grew to love those newcomers. I just grew to love every newcomer I worked with. One night Clancy was talking. He said, "Treat your kids like newcomers." What a concept, huh? My wife had been in Al-Anon by now a couple of years, and she had learned that filthy word, release, you know. She was getting better, and I was getting crazier. I kept trying to help him. And I went in the bedroom, and I knelt down, and I said, "Do you want the kids? You take the kids." And he did. And my kids have grown up now. My youngest kid's 30. My middle daughter, Jan, who is the most disturbed of all our children, ran away when she was 16. She has over 9 years of sobriety now. Scott knows her. And she's in my home group with me, and she was the secretary last year. And she's just a glorious, beautiful, wonderful person. I've never seen anybody use the steps to change their life like that girl has. She sponsors all these little honeys, and they all call me Daddy. I like that. My youngest son, Chris, has 9 years. He's kind of a quiet AA, he does a lot of H&I work, and goes to me. He's a wonderful father. He's raising 2 boys, and he's very happily married. Just a fine man. Oldest daughter kind of went wrong. She has about 15 years in Al-Anon now. Well, what are you going to do? Our youngest daughter, I don't know what the hell's the matter with her. She grew up straight in a crooked family, you know. She comes to everybody's birthdays, everything goes, yeah, she's fine, you know. And the hashish salesman, on my 4th AA birthday, he told Big Keith C., he said, "My dad has shown me how to live." You know, he didn't say I told him how to live. He didn't say I taught him how to live. He said I had shown him how to live. He meant I was an example to him. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all I'll ever be. I'm an example of the power in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I believe that's all you'll ever be. Sometimes we're great examples, and sometimes we ain't so hot. But by God, we are an example of the power of God in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he cleaned his life up, and he graduated magna cum laude from college, and he served 2 years in the Peace Corps because he's a spiritual guy, and came back, got a master's degree. Now he lives in the island of Maui in Hawaii, and vice president of a company making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He was an agriculture major. I don't ask him what he grows, and none of my goddamn he did his Peace Corps in Colombia. No, the funny thing is, he grows coffee, which is great for us, huh? And he now has about 5 months of sobriety. He got sober. I went over and 12-stepped him a year or so ago at his request, and He couldn't wait to get me back on that plane. Bye, Dad. My plane left at 9. He left me off at 3 in the afternoon. Bye, Dad. So we had Eno, but I screwed his drinking up because we went through the book and everything. And then my wife, my Al-Anon, went over. It was 5-6 months ago, and when she got off the plane, he said, I need some help, Mom. And she thought he meant babysitting. She said, oh, sure. He said, no, I got to go to AA. I got to get sober. So she went to his first 3 meetings with him, kept her mouth shut. Good Al-Anon that she is. Zip. I'm a visitor. And he's doing great. He went all the way around the world. He works for these coffee plantations. He's a big expert. Anyway, he's a big shot. He goes all around the world. South America, Kenya, everywhere they grow coffee. He was in Chiapas, where they're shooting at each other down there in Mexico. He was surveying land and coffee stuff down there. But he was kind of uncomfortable this evening. He was with a whole bunch of big shots. And he looked across the street from the square and he saw a blue neon sign in this little village in Mexico, said Alcoholics Anonymous, Alcohólico Anónimos, So he got rid of these guys about 9. He went over to this. He got there. All these peasants and mechanics and people been at the meeting are coming down the stairs, and he speaks Spanish fluently. So he said hello to them, and he told them, I've been sober 4 months now. I'm on a trip around. They took him back upstairs and had another meeting. Just for him. And the cab driver in Costa Rica said, boy, I used to drink a lot, but I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Dave, what, you guys following me? So that guy, he had to go to that meeting that night with this guy, his home group, because he's real proud. He brought the gringo with him, And so, God's taking care of him too. And when my family gets together, you can cut the happiness and the laughter with a knife. That sick, disturbed 7 crazy nuts. When we get together now, we laugh so much and so hard, and we love each other for fun and for free. We learned that here. We learned that in Al-Anon, and we learned that in AA. And we would not be here if it weren't for both programs. It's just not possible. Both my wife and I have worked all 12 of those steps. If you're new here tonight, the steps are the answer. I hear all these gurus. I got 2 minutes. I hear all these gurus in AA now. They're talking about, 3% of the people make it? That's BS. I've been 12-stepping people for 26 years now. And I agree with Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson said that 50% of the people who come to AA stay sober the rest of their life. Another 25% go in and out like me and then stay sober. But he had a clause in there, He had a qualifier in there. It said 50% of the people who come to Alcoholics Anonymous and earnestly work the steps of the program, the steps, all 12, they stay sober. People who drift in and out and never work the steps don't. People who study the steps don't even. People who analyze the steps. People who meditate on the steps. Doing the steps. There's an old joke that I love that the old priest is back in the sacristy working, and this young priest comes running back and he says, Father, you'll never guess what happened. He said, a young man came in the back of the church. He was on crutches. 2 crutches. He took some holy water and he threw it on the right and he threw away the crutch. And then he took some holy water and threw it on his left and he threw away the crutch. And the old priest said, it's a miracle. Where's the young man? He said, flatten his ass out by the holy water. You get the point? The steps don't mean anything unless you do them. They require a change of attitude or a definite observable action. And because of the steps and because of the love I have been given in this program and because of the love I've been able to give away, if you're new, I live almost every day of my life. Listen now. I live almost every day of my life happy and joyous and free. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I live a crazy, sick madman lives almost every day of his life. Happy and joyous and free. And I hope you do too.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control. up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.